Hi there! Welcome to History in Retrograde. This is the podcast where we use the ancient art of astrology to help us better understand the past. I'm your co-host, Chandler O'Quinn, and joining me live via satellite is my mom. Hi, Mom!
Hi, Chandler. How are you?
I'm doing well. Are you ready to begin another grand experiment?
Absolutely. I'm always ready to do another experiment.
All right, let's give it a whirl.
Okay, let's go. And again, every episode, I just cannot thank our listeners enough. I'm so happy that we have so many listeners. It's very exciting to be such a young podcast and have so many people listening. Hello, listeners. Thank you for being there.
Yes, it's a great hope that we are finding you in a positive mood wherever you are in the world, and we've got a great episode teed up for you today, and, if there are any of you, if this is your first episode of History in Retrograde, we want to welcome you and tell you a little bit about how we do things around here. So the way that the podcast works is that in a moment, I will give the astrological birth data of a random historical figure to my mother. Now, you, the listening audience, already know who this historical figure is. It's in the title of today's episode. I, of course, know who it is because I selected this person, but Mom has no idea who this person could be. So in a moment, I will give her the data necessary to create an astrological birth chart. That is the birth date, time, and location of our random mystery history guest. She will then input that information into the back computer, and out will come the astrological birth chart, where all of the planets, moons, and stars were at the moment that person was born. She will then give us an initial reading, doing her best to tell us what the different personality traits, motivations, fortunes of this person might be. I'll ask a few discussion questions and then reveal to her who our mystery history guest is. Give a little background about the person, and then we will conclude it by seeing how accurate the chart was at predicting who that person would be. So without any further ado, let's begin.
Okay, let's go.
This is a male.
All right.
Born on the 23rd of June.
Okay.
1927.
Okay.
And at long last, we do have a birth time.
Yay!
It is 10:29 p.m.
p.m. Great. And where?
The United States.
Okay. I'm so happy we have a birth time. That's so good. Okay. And the city?
Chicago, Illinois.
All right. Well, let's see what we have here.
So again, this is a male born June 23rd, 1927 at 10:29 p.m. in Chicago, Illinois.
Wow. Okay. Very interesting. Well, I mean, I would say first off, see how everything is concentrated on this hemisphere right here?
Right, the lower hemisphere?
Well, it's actually it's the northern one. For whatever reason, this appears the southern one and this is the northern one. But regardless, usually when you have someone who has a concentration of all their planets down here, they are very, materialistic, like corporate people, or somehow should be really good at making money. So there's that. And we have, wow, okay, so this person has Aquarius ascendant. Interesting. Because see how it's at 27 degrees?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they're actually on the cusp of Pisces, Aquarius, ascendant, all right? So they could easily have aspects of both in their ascendant, okay? And how people perceive them. This person should have been a very unique person. Not your average Joe, okay? Because with that Aquarius rising and then having Pisces right there, just 2 degrees to Pisces, it would have made him a very creative person, maybe possibly a very unique dresser or just really unique. Because also here in the first house, we have Jupiter conjunct Uranus, all right? So people who have Uranus in the first house tend to be very, very unique. They are definitely not, on top of having Aquarius rising, all right, and having Aquarius almost in Pisces rising, this person has Jupiter and Uranus in their first house, okay? Uranus, as we know, rules Aquarius, right? So here you have like a double Aquarius, okay? Except that their Uranus is in Aries, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm making sense, right? Because Uranus rules Aquarius, right? But this person has Aquarius and Jupiter in Aries. And it has it conjunct. See how this is 2 degrees and this is 3 degrees?
Yeah.
The Jupiter is at 2 degrees and the Uranus is at 3 degrees. So I can only imagine that this person was very striking, or very weird. It could be both. They could be very weird to the average person, or very eclectic or very unique, I think. All right. So because Jupiter is benevolence, right? And Uranus is futuristic, technology, real kind of space age kind of stuff. And this person has it in Aries. So Aries can be, when I say Leo rising, when they walk into a room, everybody knows they're there. Aries can do the same thing. It's just a different aspect of it. Aries is more powerful, but they don't necessarily drink in the attention the way a Leo rising would. A Leo rising really likes to interact and really likes to talk to people and really likes to just interact with a lot of different people. And Aries is more commanding kind of personality. So here you have this person that is potentially very unique and artistic and powerful in their demeanor, right? They don't come across as someone that you could walk on, even though they have that Aquarius Pisces, right? But see, here is where it changes to Aries, right? So here we have 27 degrees Aquarius rising. Then we have this Pisces to here, okay, with no planets in Pisces. And then right here, where the house cusp changes to Aries, we have Jupiter and Uranus conjunct. So that Jupiter is always going to make everything more, right? And Uranus bouncing off of Jupiter like that is very intense. Okay, and now this person also has Moon in Aries. So now we have Jupiter, Uranus, and Moon, right? All conjunct in Aries. Woo! And then they have Chiron in this, and we move Moon in the second house. So this is a person who really loves nice things, okay? Because that Moon in Aries in the second house is going to be opulence. It should be. Taurus is one thing, to have Taurus on the second house, but that's its home place, right? Because first house is ruled by Aries, second house is ruled by Taurus. That's how you decipher what that second house stands for, right? The second house stands for all things Taurian, Venus, right? But this person has Moon in Aries in the second house. So they love opulent things, okay? Or they should. I don't know. Then we have Chiron in Taurus falling in the second house. Now, Chiron is that planet of, wounded healer. So it is possible this person maybe gained their love for things from not having anything or having some karma with material things, and then somehow healing other people or organizations or whatever with maybe even benevolence. It's possible. Then third house is Taurus. Okay, here's our third house cusp right here. And there's nothing in that house. And then fourth house cusp is Gemini. And we have North Node conjunct Sun. Oh man, this is a very interesting person. North Node in Gemini at 27 degrees. And actually the sun is in Cancer here at 1 degree. So see how it changes right here in that house?
Yeah.
And then we just have 1 degree sun in Cancer. But that sun in Cancer might calm down some of this other stuff. But having North Node in Gemini in the fourth house. Fourth house is going to be your home, your community, your country, all of the things that you consider home, right? Even your house, okay? And having North Node there makes this person very connected to their house or their country or their home or their community, something along that line, because it is their direction, okay? And it has to do with communications because it's Gemini, right? Somehow communicating for your country, I'm not sure. This person then has Pluto in Cancer in the fifth house. Pluto is, I think, the most powerful planet in a chart. I mean, I look at a lot of the other ones, but Pluto is the one that has that gut-wrenching ability to take you all the way and burn you down and bring you back up again. And this person has it in the fifth house, which is ruled by Leo, which is leadership and also romance. And, that can be very intense romance or even sexual behavior. It could be, if dark side would be deviant sexual behavior. It can also be the light side is very, interested in children and children in the family and things like that, but also show business. So having Pluto in the fifth house is a very powerful planet to have in your fifth house if you're not in show business, or even if you're like a leader. Is any of this clicking?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, good. Yay. I love it when that happens. See the difference when we have a birth time? Mm-hmm. Woohoo! I do like it. I know we have to do the people who don't have birth times, but man, sometimes I wish we could go back right away and just go, wait, let's look at all of the birth times and see which one makes sense. Okay, so now we have a really heavy concentration in the sixth house. You see all this? Mm-hmm. We have Mercury, Mars, Venus, and Neptune, all in the sixth house. So Mercury is going to be in Cancer. Okay, so Mercury is, we have a triple Cancer, all right? We have Mercury conjunct Pluto conjunct Sun, all in Cancer, okay? Spread across fourth, fifth, and sixth houses, all right? But then we have Mars and Venus and Neptune, all right? Mars at 10 degrees Leo, Venus at 16 degrees Leo, making those two just almost exactly conjunct within a 5-degree orb. And then we have Neptune at 24 degrees Leo in the sixth house. Having Leo ruling their sixth house would mean that they would work in Leo things, right? So that should be show business or any of the Leo things, having to do with children or, because Leo is ruled by the sun. So it's very bright, right? It's whatever they're doing in their work, it's shining light, mm-hmm. And they have Mars, their direction, Venus, what they love, and Neptune, which is creativity. Dark side of Neptune could be crazy, but I'm thinking no. I'm thinking very creative, right? They're very creative in their work. They're driven by their work. They love their work, right? And we have Saturn in the 9th house in Sagittarius, trining all that, Leo, all right? And trining this Jupiter, and I mean, literally by degree, right? Saturn is trining. See this great trine here? See this triangle? Yeah, it's huge. Okay. And so trining this Saturn, right, in Sag in the 9th house. And that's crazy because Sag rules the 9th house, right? Jupiter rules the 9th house. It's the house of philosophy. It's the house of travel and learning and education and all those things. And somehow this person has this. Well, this is the only thing they have on the top part of their chart. So it's trining all of this really crazy, unique stuff that goes on in the 1st house, and it's trining all of this work in Leo in the 6th house. It's very interesting. Do you have any questions?
Yes. What profession do you think this person would go into?
Well, I personally would like to think this person was a performer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they have a lot of really unique abilities here in their chart. I would think they were. But, I mean, they could be other Leo things. You know, they could be a leader. They could be some sort of commander. But they would be really, really unique.
Any ideas of what part of performance they might be attracted to?
Something really sparkly. Something where they are clearly unique. Like they are not, this is not a person that would be understated. This is a person like, I would think this person would be very showy.
Mm-hmm. And I think you covered it a little bit, but I'll ask anyway. What is their relationship to work?
With this Mars and Venus and Neptune and Mercury all in the 6th house, I can't imagine that this person did not love work. Like they live to work. They jump out of bed in the morning to go to work. You know, it's like they're very excited about work. Mm-hmm. And they should be very good at it, mm-hmm. you know, because it's, you know, 6th house is ruled by Virgo, and Virgos like very much to have their work be the best. Mm-hmm. And, you know, this person would be very serious about being the best at their work, I would think.
So maybe a perfectionist?
I would think that it could easily be a perfectionist, but definitely a person who will go all the miles mm-hmm. to do what they need to do creatively, you know?
What role do women play in his life?
Well, he has Venus conjunct Mars, conjunct Neptune in his 6th house. So, I mean, on one hand, he could work with women. He could work with his women. You know what I mean? On the other hand, he could want to be, if he's heterosexual, he could want to be very benevolent with things, right? Because here in the 2nd house, this person has Moon in Aries in the 2nd house, right? So I could only imagine, because a person with Aries would want, I don't know, I get this feeling like this person would want you to know that he bought her a mink coat. Mm. You know what I mean? Like he's very benevolent. I would assume he's very benevolent with women, including his mother and sisters, whoever gets the presents, right?
But there are things that he also wants the world to know that he's benevolent.
I think so. I think that's kind of a thing, you know? Like, I mean, just because I feel like this person is very flashy. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, this person would be like not like, let's say this person took a limo, but they didn't just take any limo. They took the most unique limo that there was.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, look at all this Leo and look at all this Aries and then Saturn in Sag trining all that. Stop. And then here you have this Aquarius rising, which is going to make them really different. People with Aquarius rising are extremely unique.
How does this person relate to monogamy?
I don't know. I don't know. This person has Virgo on their 7th house cusp. So it's possible. It's possible they could be monogamous because they have Virgo on the 7th house. But then again, that Virgo can be cool, man. Virgo can be really cool. And Virgo can also sort of like work it out in their head how logical it is not to be monogamous. So, I don't know. I would think that this particular person with all this going on might have a difficult time being monogamous because he wants to love the women. And the women are his work. Somehow the women are his work. I don't know how, but this and stuff and all, I would think lots of money because of all this going on the bottom half of their chart. I don't know. I don't know. I personally, looking at this chart, would not think this person was being monogamous was the top of their list. They're very busy being fabulous. Mm-hmm. This is I would think, a very fabulous person.
Can you get any sense of their physical characteristics? Would they be an athletic person?
Well, they do have Jupiter and Uranus in Aries, and typically Aries looks like a warrior, right? That would be what you would think, and they do tend to be very physical, right? But they have Aquarius rising. And you have to go from this Aquarius through this Pisces to get to this Aries. Mm-hmm. So, in a way, yes. But I would also think it would be different. Like you not thinking, oh, okay, this person is the guy on the football team. You know what I mean? Like, the guy on the football team's buff, right? Mm-hmm. But that's kind of just average compared to this guy. This guy's different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How would this person do with controlled substances?
Well, it's part of his work. I don't know. I really don't, because here's Neptune, right? And whenever you're talking about addictions or things like that, you go to the dark side of Neptune, right? Which is why, like when we were talking about Anson Jones and he had Moon in Pisces, and it's just too much, right? Yeah. And it's too easy for them to do it. It's too easy for someone who has a Moon or an affliction in Pisces, because that particular Pisces wants to go to the stratosphere. They don't want to deal with this world. They don't like it. It's not good for them, right? So they're more comfortable when they're, out there, which is very bad. They need to use, while they're here on this planet at this time, they need to use their powers for creativity and stuff like that for good. They need to not, try to escape, because they're here, so they have to do what we're here for, whatever it is, whatever we signed up for, we're here now. Do it. No, everybody doesn't like it, but we have to do it. So in this particular situation, he's got Neptune in Leo. So that sort of gives him like, well, hey, I'm in charge of whatever I want to do. right? So it is possible that this person could have dabbled in stuff, but I mean, it's possible for everybody to dabble in stuff. There's no real straightforward answer in no, because there's nothing here. He has nothing in Pisces, right?
Okay.
And I don't want to say that Pisces in quotes is going to be the one, but also you have to look at what's in Capricorn, because Capricorns are also notorious for being addicted, right?
Yeah.
So you have to look at these different things. But no, I don't see anything straightforward right off the bat that tells me, oh yeah, this person could have a problem. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So,
how is this person's self-esteem?
I would think that this person has crazy good self-esteem. I would not think this person had one moment of doubt about anything. There's way too much going on here. Hey, but maybe, they do have Sun in Cancer, all right? And they do have Pluto in Cancer, all right? And they do have Mercury in Cancer. So they're triple Cancer, triple Leo, all right? And you might as well just go ahead and say triple Aries, because you can pull this Sag down into this Aries, because you got all this fire. But it is possible that this person maybe could have had moments of doubt, because Cancer people are very more concerned about other people, right, than themselves. So even though this person, if this person said, I'm a Cancer, you would not necessarily believe that this person was a Cancer, because they've got all this other stuff going on. And that's why when people read the newspaper to get their, forecast for astrology, that is not a good idea, because that is not your forecast. That is just some forecast for, random, Cancer or Leo or whatever. But maybe this person could have had moments of doubt, but I don't think that they would last very long. Okay. I think that this person would get back up and go fight the good fight. This person has way too much fire to be, taken down by self-doubt. I think.
How does this person relate to sexuality?
I think they like it a lot. I think they like it a whole bunch. And having Pluto in the 5th house, Pluto is the planet of sexuality and secrets. And Pluto rules Scorpio. So I don't know what else I could say. Their particular Pluto is in Cancer, but it is in the 5th house, the house of relationships, right? Because the 5th house is also about really, romantic relationships and sexuality. If you're looking to find out, if people are going to have a good relationship, you look at the 5th house, you look at the 7th house, you look at the 8th house, and, you look at a lot of different other aspects. But I would think they didn't have a problem there.
Okay. Is there anything else about this chart that you haven't talked about already?
I don't know. I just think that this person has the ability to sway. If this is a heterosexual person, this person can definitely have no problem just having women swoon. I would think so. Because this is a lot. This guy, dang. I don't know who this is, but man, he's something.
Yeah. Yes, he sure was. So I think we're ready for our summary of our findings. First thing was very materialistic, good at making money, a very unique person, not average, very creative, a unique dresser, could be very weird or very striking, eclectic, when he enters a room, artistic and powerful, commanding, intense, loves nice things, opulence, gained love through lack. So it's possible that he gained the love of material things through a lack of having them early on in his life. Lessons with materialism, connected to home and community. And communications about home and community, intense romance and sexual behavior, power in show business, work in show business, creative or crazy, driven by work, could be a performer, attracted to sparkles, commanding, not understated, very showy, loves work. He lives to work and he's successful at it. Could be a perfectionist. He will go the distance. He will continue to persevere. His work might have something to do with his women. There is a benevolence with women, and he wants to show the world his benevolence to the women. It could have a difficult time with monogamy. Women are connected to the work. Would be a different type of athletic person. Drugs could be part of the work. Could have good self-esteem. More concern for others than for self. Possible moments of doubt, and a very sexual person. Did I leave anything out?
No, I don't think so.
Would you like to know whose chart you've been reading?
Yes, I really do.
You are looking at the astrological birth chart of Bob Fosse.
Oh no! Yes! Yes! Oh my God! I nailed it! Woo! Bob Fosse. Oh my, that's amazing. Okay, yeah. Oh hell yeah, that's Bob Fosse. Oh yeah, it is. Who knows what he's gonna do? Lord of mercy. Oh, yeah, he was definite. Oh, yeah, there was no way around this. This was happening. That's great. I love it. I absolutely love it. And I love Bob Fosse. I mean, who doesn't? Who does not love Fosse? Oh, that's great.
So for those in the audience who do not know automatically who Bob Fosse is, Fosse was one of the most influential choreographers, directors of musicals and films of the latter part of the 20th century. He pretty much cemented his style onto Broadway with shows like Chicago and Pippin, any sort of musical that you might watch today, or any sort of classic Hollywood musical from the 50s onward, very likely has a Fosse touch from the style of dance that he created. So Bob Fosse was born Robert Louis Fosse, June 23rd, 1927 in Chicago. He was born to Cyril and Sarah Fosse. Cyril was a traveling salesman for the Hershey Candy Company. Bob was the fifth of 6 children. All of his brothers were much taller than he was, and they were much more athletic, and they were good at football and baseball. And it was very hard for Bob Fosse to get attention in that household. And he knew that he couldn't do it through the conventional means of sports, and so he very early started dancing. He was very much attracted to the theater, to dance. He would go to the movie theater and see Fred Astaire movies. He would see them 5-6 times in a row. He would go to the vaudeville houses. He would see even the African American houses to see how they dance, and then he would go back home and replicate those dances in front of the family. this was all just what he was learning on his own. He did get to go to dance classes during grade school because there was a crush that he had on a girl that he was going to school with, and she went to dancing classes, and so he went to the dancing classes. That girl actually quit the next week, but Bob Fosse stayed in the dancing classes. By the age of 13, he was performing professionally. He was performing with a friend named Charles Grass, and they were performing as the Riff Brothers. They were making $10 a night, 6 days a week, so $60 a week. And he very much liked the world of the burlesque theaters and all of the extravagant and exciting sights and sounds and women in the burlesque halls. In 1939, Bob Fosse was the only boy who was in Frederick Waverly's Chicago ballet class. Bob Fosse graduated high school in 1945 and served in the U.S. Navy. During his time in the Navy, he requested to be put onto special assignment for the special services, so doing shows for the USO to entertain the troops, and he performed in musicals for the soldiers who were stationed in the Pacific after World War II. Fosse was discharged from the Navy in 1947, and he went to New York. He wanted to be a nightclub performer, wanted to continue his career in the burlesque and vaudeville halls, and he also started to get some early television gigs. While he was doing this, he married his dance partner, Mary Ann Niles, and immediately started seeing other women as well. One of these other women was named Joan McCracken. Joan was 12 years older than Bob Fosse. Joan encouraged Fosse, really showed him that he could be more than just a nightclub act. He could be more than a burlesque hall dancer. He could be the next Fred Astaire if he wanted to. And so he took money from the GI Bill, and he took a year off from doing all of the burlesque halls and started going to the professional dance schools in New York. He had a bicycle. He would ride his bike to the different professional dance studios in New York. And by 1950, he was good enough that he went to MGM in Hollywood for a screen test. And he was 23 years old, but already was starting to lose his hair. And so the people in MGM said, he's great, but we're going to have to put a piece on him. So he'd have to wear a toupee. It was during this time in MGM that he actually met his idol, Fred Astaire. The story goes that he was walking in the back lot. It was during lunch, so lots of the actors were not present on the back lot. He saw Fred Astaire walking ahead of him, and he started to try and walk to catch up to Fred Astaire. And he walked with him about 2 blocks down the back lot, and Fred Astaire stopped and he held out his hand and said, "How you doing, Fosse?"
That's so great!
Fred Astaire already knew who Bob Fosse was.
Oh my gosh, that's so wonderful. Don't you know he just practically fainted?
Yeah. So Fosse...
He probably just would have given thumbs up or something.
So Bob Fosse was working in studio films, studio musicals throughout the 1950s, and wasn't always the choreographer, but was developing his unique style throughout the 1950s. What I think is particularly interesting about Fosse's style of dance is that all of the movements, all of the symbols of Fosse style are all built from his insecurities. He was losing his hair, so he always wanted to dance with a hat on. He had a natural hunch, so he started rolling his shoulders forward as he danced. All the ballet teachers told him to splay his feet out, and he couldn't do it. He always had pigeon toes, and so he would turn his feet in. And so he would take all of these things that prevented him from being a great ballet dancer or a great tap dancer, and created his all original form of dance from his insecurities. So the first film, the first real dance that you can see that is a complete Fosse dance is when he choreographed the musical 1954, The Pajama Game. He was the head choreographer on that, and you watch things like Steam Heat, and you can see that style as it's replicated throughout the rest of his career and throughout Broadway history. He divorced the first wife. He married Joan McCracken, and as soon as he married Joan, he started seeing another woman.
He was horrible.
So things really changed for him in 1955 when he choreographed Damn Yankees, and there was a specific dancer named Gwen Verdon, and that would become, if there is a one love of Fosse's life that is maybe more influential than the others, it would be Verdon. And they had a great partnership in their personal life and in their career, probably more in the career than in the personal life. Knowing Fosse's proclivities. He married Gwen in 1960. They had their child, a daughter named Nicole, born in 1963. But of course, Fosse continued his philandering ways, having affairs with nearly all of the dancers that he was in charge of as a director and a choreographer throughout his time in stage and screen. In the 1950s, going into the 1960s, he started moving away from classic Hollywood and going to Broadway. He choreographed Redhead, How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying. Sweet Charity was a Broadway musical that was a gift to his wife, Gwen, after she had taken off a few years for maternity leave after giving birth to Nicole. So he made the whole musical Sweet Charity to completely showcase Gwen's talents. And did that in 1966. And then in 1969, it was such a smash hit musical on Broadway, they wanted to make a motion picture from Sweet Charity. And Bob Fosse, this was his directorial debut. He had been choreographing dances, but now he was in charge of the camera too. Shirley MacLaine would be playing the role that Gwen Verdon was playing in Sweet Charity. It's as with all things Fosse, it is very stylistic. It is very much unique, but it did not meet very rave reviews from the critics, and people said that it had lost something. That even the dance numbers were great, but the movie was a little. The critics didn't like it, and it really tainted Fosse's reputation in Hollywood and even in Broadway as well. He did not work for another year and a half. He decided that he knew that he was a good director and he was not going to do another Broadway show. He wanted to make another motion picture. That opportunity came for him in 1971 when the Broadway musical Cabaret they're going to make a motion picture off of that. Cabaret went to many directors. Gene Kelly turned it down. Several other famous directors turned it down. And then Bob Fosse said, I will do it. I will direct Cabaret. And so he did that in 1972. That same year, he made a television special with Cabaret star Liza Minnelli. The television special was called Liza with a Z. He was also working on Pippin, all at the same time. The next year, in 1973, Bob Fosse became the only person so far to win an Emmy, an Oscar, and a Tony in the same year. So he won the Emmy for the Liza with a Z. He won the Tony for Pippin, and he won a Best Director Academy Award at the 1973 Academy Awards, beating Francis Ford Coppola for The Godfather.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So throughout the mid-'70s, Fosse continues working on these great musicals. Pippin comes out. Then 1974, Fosse works on this musical that he believes it's a response to Watergate. It's a response to the corruption, the materialistic culture of America in the mid-1970s, and how much it links to what America had gone through 50 years before in the 20s. He creates Chicago. Fosse continued to work on stage and screen. He also continued having many affairs. In 1971, he would separate from Gwen Verdon, but they would continue working together in a professional capacity, and they would actually never divorce. They'd be separated, and he would be living with other women and doing all the things that he did, but they never actually divorced. I think during this time, this is where lots of the things start occurring in Fosse's life that will later be portrayed in his sort of autobiographical work, All That Jazz. And one of the main quotes that really stuck out to Fosse was when the tightrope rocker, Walinda, he had had an accident from falling from the tightrope. And later on, he was quoted by saying, "The wire is life. Everything else is just waiting." So to Fosse, the stress, the in the moment, the heat, the anxiety, the what putting on the show and the show, that is life. Everything else that isn't stress, that's life that's not even worth living.
Wow.
And that really comes out when you see he made the motion picture in 1979, All That Jazz. Roy Scheider plays a sort of version of Bob Fosse. You also really get to see all the health problems of this life that he had lived start coming up through the 60s into the 70s and 80s. He actually had no idea that he had epilepsy until he was incapacitated by an epileptic seizure while rehearsing one of his shows in the 1960s. The doctors, in order to continue this hectic work schedule, started prescribing him amphetamines. He was addicted to these amphetamines, had massive hallucinations because of the combination, the cocktail of drugs going through his body. At one time, he did believe that he was Jesus Christ. He was having hallucinations, epileptic seizures. Before he was 50 years old, he had had 2 heart attacks.
Wow.
He and all the while continued smoking many packs of cigarettes a day.
Oh no.
It is really hard to find a picture of Bob Fosse without a cigarette in his mouth. He would dance with cigarettes in his mouth. He would direct, choreograph. One of the interviews that I saw, it had been after 2 of these heart attacks, and it was with Dick Cavett, and Dick Cavett says, I'm just worried for you. Like, isn't there any way for you to quit smoking? There's, is it about business with your hands? They make, beads and things to do with your hands so that you're not smoking. Bob Fosse goes, yeah, but they just don't taste as good. So 1979, Bob Fosse makes All That Jazz. It is critically acclaimed. It won the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival in France. It received a standing ovation there. Continued working throughout the 1980s. he working both on Broadway, doing the stage production of Dancin'. Dancin' was all of these ideas that he had for dances that couldn't fit into the regular shows that he was doing. So all these lavish ways of communicating with your body, he just made one show where he showcased all of what was in his head. And then he also made Star 80, which was a film that was also panned by critics. He continued choreographing and directing Broadway shows, and in fact, it is in September of 1987, he was walking through the streets of New York on his way to the opening of one of his shows that was being reproduced, and that is where he had a heart attack and died in September of 1987. He was 60 years old.
Wow.
Bob Fosse led a life that is, he truly had an impact on American theater, on the global stage of dance and how you use your body to communicate feelings. And I get this feeling that Bob Fosse led a life that is really American, that looking at there's something that I admire in how he continued to work and he persevered and he loved the stress and he loved every moment of putting a show together, and that any time that was spent relaxing was not worth. That's not what life is about. Life is about the work and the struggle. And I'm sure that many French postmodern philosophers or the great Eastern thinkers would say that that's not what life is about. Life is about finding inner peace and finding sanctuary and all these things. But there's something about that perseverance and that work ethic and that defiance and using your inabilities, using your weaknesses and creating a strength out of your weaknesses that I just admire greatly in the man, despite all of his many, many faults. He is a truly remarkable figure.
Oh, I agree. Absolutely. And I really am surprised that, first of all, I'm surprised that you chose Fosse. I'm very excited that you chose Fosse because All That Jazz is it's absolutely one of my favorite films, mm-hmm. because when you have a life in theater, you so understand what's happening in every aspect of that film. Mm-hmm. And then, to go back to have your questions be like, well, is there drugs involved? And I answered you by saying, yes, they're connected to work. Mm-hmm. That's crazy. And then, to have you ask, is he a physical person? It's like, yes, very physical, but not in the way that you would think. Mm-hmm. That's so cool. Sometimes astrology really does amaze me because it's like, wow, that's a lot. And then to know, these insecurities that he would have, and then to have taken those and turned it around, right? Like, take that, Yeah. And it's so cool because here, when you have this Saturn in Sagittarius in the 9th house, that's your philosophy. That's your dogma. And his dogma, if you look, see, his dogma mm-hmm. is directly related to this, which is that Jupiter and Uranus in Aries, right? And directly related to all of this Leo, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like this is how it all comes together. And there was no way that this person wasn't going to be a workaholic. That was just going to happen. Having Mars and Venus and Neptune conjunct in the 6th house in Leo, no, that was happening. So, wow. And communicating through his physical creativity, right? That North Node in Gemini in the 4th house. And the 4th house was the house, right? Mm-hmm. It's the theater.
Yeah.
That's crazy. It gives me chills. That's so cool. Well, I hope you listeners are all really enjoying this because especially I know that there's a lot of people who are in theater who listen to the show. And this is very awesome.
Yeah, and, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the work, I would encourage you. I know that Cabaret is going to have a nationwide release for 1 or 2 days coming this year in 2022. And then Chicago and the early stuff, the Pajama Game and Damn Yankees. These are some of the greatest films, some of the greatest expression has ever been captured on film. So I would encourage you all to go and see those.
Yes, just go to IMDb and do Fosse. Just do like a full film festival of Fosse.
So I think on our scale of right on the money to way out in outer space, this one is right on the money. This is Fosse.
I'm so happy because all these last ones that you've had me do with no birth time, and I'm like, if I just had the birth time, and you gave me the birth time, and it was Fosse. That's very good. I'm very excited, Chandler. You did good.
Thank you. So that concludes this episode of History in Retrograde. We'd like to thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to reach out and talk to us, we are available on socials. Please email us, historyinretrograde@gmail.com. We are on Facebook at History in Retrograde, on Instagram at Retrograde Podcast. There is a link to our PayPal account if you are feeling generous and are able to donate a little bit. Every little bit helps us in growing the show, getting better equipment, producing a better show for you all. And I think, and please rate us if you are on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Please rate and review. And I think that does conclude us. So I will say, as always in conclusion, as long as your houses are in order and the stars are aligned, everything will be just fine.
Everything will be just fine. And for all of those listeners who are sending in, $10 and $20, please believe me, those contributions help a lot. We wouldn't mind having a nice big fat $10,000 contribution, but hey, whatever you can do is really appreciated. And we do want to hear from you. We would like to hear your ideas on other potential subjects that Chandler could do the research on. So please don't hesitate to contact us. We will answer you. So contact us on Facebook and on Instagram. And, let us know what you think. We're very interested. We do really love you guys. Thank you so much for being there and listening to the show.
Yes, thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Salal Creek Studio.